Right, we now know that the next DLC will be coming November 20th. So let's have a little bit of fun and play some DLC bingo. First up, shoehorned monarchy path. Come on, it's a HOI4 update. There's always one or two of them. The country I think is most likely for this is probably the Philippines, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it happened to the warlords, communist China, and even nationalist China. There's going to be a monarchy path somewhere where one doesn't belong. Next up, shared united front tree. You know, the ones like the Sada backpack, the Austro-Hungarian ones, that sort of shared focus tree. And I think that would be a really good way to make it a more united front. Everyone can do their own little bit thanks to this. You know, someone works on defense, someone works on supply, someone works on equipment, foreign support, and so on. I really hope something like this does actually happen, since it's the sort of thing that works for single player, multiplayer, RPers, everyone. It's a really good idea. Thirdly, Japan's surrender works. I think even in current HOI4, Japan technically can surrender, but the requirements are so ridiculous that the AI never does it. It's something ridiculous, but I don't remember what it is. Remind me, please. But regardless, it's something that should be implemented properly in the game, right? Fourth, a good puppet path. You know, HOI4 has enough bad puppet paths that I didn't think it was worth bringing it up. So let's do the opposite of that. There are so many opportunities in this DLC to do puppet paths. Menguquo, Manchuria, Thailand, Philippines, that one of them has to be good. I hope for once we truly get a good puppet path. It would be so nice, you know? And the last one for this row, ways to get back concession cities. You know, apart from Guangzhouwan, which can only really happen if Japan takes it, there really isn't a way for players to get back Hong Kong and Macau easily. It's kind of ridiculous that you have to do a world conquest for Hong Kong and Macau. So there should be something to get them back. You know, I don't know, border conflicts, buy them back, steal them back, demand them back, anything like that would be great. I know it's technically ahistorical to get them back in the 40s instead of the 90s, but come on, when has that stopped HOI4 before? Second row. Operation Downfall. This is the sort of thing that does belong in a US rework, but it also belongs here. What I imagine would happen is that if Japan refuses to surrender, the Allies get this as a national spirit, something to boost naval invasion, breakthrough, that sort of thing. Because obviously at that point you'll be invading the Japanese mainland, so a little bit of a buff would be fine for that. And I guess since we're on the subject, this also gives Japan the ability to refuse to surrender, which I would be fine with on ahistorical, so you know, more options. Now it's time for faction rework works flawlessly. Again, it would be too easy to say Paradox will mess this up and it'll be full of bugs, and you know, maybe it will. But normally when they do big reworks like this, it normally does pretty much what it's meant to do. So maybe this time it will work flawlessly. However doubtful that is. Number 8, recycled achievements. There's going to be plenty of achievements that we've already pretty much gotten. You know, as a warlord, conquer China. As China, conquer this. As communist China, conquer that. As Japan, do this. There's definitely going to be some things we've already pretty much gotten before, just with a brand new coat of paint. I do sympathise with Paradox on this one, because HOI4 has hundreds of achievements at this point. It must be hard to make new achievements for this game, but that doesn't mean I fully excuse recycling achievements. This might be a bit of a surprise. Korea gets content. We already know Paradox is not going to make Korea a starting nation. They went back on that. But that doesn't mean they can't still get content. This can be things like portraits, events, some other things like new states, maybe even something for the Korean War. You know, anything. With a name like this, pretty much anything can count. And the fifth one for this row, a bad Waking the Tiger reference. What I would say is a bad reference is something that is too obvious. Something like a focus name, an achievement name, something subtle like, I don't know, a focus description I guess would be okay. But you know, I'm sure you can think of something. third row, releasables from Malaya. This could be releasables in general, but I think Malaya are the best candidate for this. You have so many potential countries: Malaysia, Singapore, Borneo. Hell, they could probably do something like Langfang, which I know is technically the Dutch East Indies, but I have nowhere else to mention this. There's going to be releasables in general, but Malaya are going to get quite a few of them. An old friend. Zybe Sanmar. The Zybe Sanmar, as we know them, is going to be split into 3 countries, but I still think there's going to be some reference to them somewhere. It may be a formable, it may be an Easter egg, it may be some sort of joke reference somewhere. Anything, really. It would be very unprecedented for Paradox to remove something entirely and not leave something to find. Well, we've made it to the middle space, or the free space, but I've also called it bugs. Because there's going to be one, there obviously will be, so whatever, there it is. And if by some miracle there isn't one, just ignore the bugs and consider it a free space. This should be interesting. Invading Japan becomes harder. Just like the UK and GDR, I think this is the sort of thing that will happen. Invading Japan right now is sort of easy, sort of hard, it depends on who you play, but I reckon Paradox will change it to make it harder, because it's kind of the thing they do. Japan is kind of the final boss of this region, so it makes sense in a way. I just hope it's reasonable. It should be a challenge, but not infuriating. You get me. Number 15, Burger King foot lettuce. Okay, we're not going to do the rest of that. Number 15 is another GOE disaster. Another GOE disaster, in my opinion, would be if Paradox has to come out with a public statement apologising, because that's what they had to do for GOE. Upper management came down to apologise. That's how bad it got last time. But you know, if you want to consider another GOE disaster something else like bad focus trees, things don't work, that's also fair. You can qualify this however you want. Fourth row, Philippines becomes Spain. This is the sort of thing I would expect Kaiser Redux to do, so it's perfect for vanilla HOI4, you know, with the East India Company and everything. Especially if there's a shoehorned in monarchy path. I can see it now. The Philippines somehow gets a random Spanish monarch, and somehow you're expected to retake the mainland. Whoa. I hope I'm wrong on that one, but it's so likely. Let's include something that will definitely change things up. A nerf to using Indonesia's manpower. Let's be honest, it's a thing we've relied on for the longest time, and it's probably going to get changed, and this would be the perfect time to do it. The fact that you can just use millions and millions of Indonesian men in your army practically for free is kind of game-breaking. It is extremely useful, however, it's exactly the sort of thing Paradox likes to clamp down on. So they're probably going to add a thing to Indonesia where they have a recruitable population factor reduction. So you know, for every 100 men you only get 30 of them. That's the sort of thing they would do to nerf them. Speaking of Paradox, Paradox changes the combat width. It's been a while since the last combat width change and the meta has sort of stabilised. I know it's not perfect, but it's sort of been the same for a while now. So we are sort of overdue for Paradox changing it again. I don't know what they would do, but could be interesting if they did it. And I guess to complete this semi-trilogy, border conflicts still suck. I mean, we know they suck. They've sucked for years. They're inconsistent. You can lose at a drop of a hat. So wouldn't surprise me at all if they just remained completely unchanged. I have no idea how Paradox could fix them. They exist on their own, unrelated to pretty much everything else in HOI4, so it would be pretty easy for Paradox just to go, nah, not gonna bother. And finally, something about Manchuria. Kwangtung Army overthrows Puyi path. The thing with Manchuria's alt history paths, there isn't too many options for them. You can only really have the rebellion path alongside the obedience path. So this could be an interesting way to add a third alternative path. The army gets bored of Puyi, decides to overthrow him, puts someone on the throne, or maybe just goes full military junta. There's going to be something interesting with these guys, because they got up to some interesting things, to say the least. Row 5. Power struggle gets removed. I would expect this to actually get reworked, but I also know that the power struggle is so unpopular that removing it would be a very popular decision, so really it can go either way. I hope it stays, I know how it works, but what can you do? But speaking of very old content, Paradox doesn't fix Manchuria's peace out. Specifically, I'm talking about the peace out that happens in the original Manchurian focus tree. That's been broken for the last 2 years. And remember, not everyone is going to buy this DLC, so at minimum the thing Paradox should do is make sure that the old content actually works. This one has been a long time coming. Pearl Harbor. It's been a long time since HOI4 actually had anything to do with Pearl Harbor in the game, so this really should be included. The big question, however, is how this is going to be done. One of them could be an operation, spies, do this, do that, make an intel network, and then do it. But the other way, which I think is much more likely, is a raid. Of course, it's the new feature, so it makes sense to use it, and it does work a bit better in the context of Pearl Harbor. So maybe it could be a mix of the two. The prerequisite to doing the raid could be doing some intel stuff. I think that would be the best of both worlds. Back to China, and it's the RGOC appears. What is the RGOC? Well, it's the Reorganized Government of National China, and it's the thing Wang Jingwei led when he became a traitor. So how is HOI4 going to handle it? I think it should be handled like the Italian Civil War. So once Japan invades far enough, it spawns, and it spawns as a puppet of Japan. A thing like that, I do hope you get the option to refuse it, because it's kind of annoying in Italy where it's forced on you. As long as there's an option, we're okay. And finally, the big 25, MacArthur Chinese leader Easter egg. Ever since the community discovered this, I think Paradox has been a fan of it. I swear I saw one of the devs or PR team comment on it. It's a kind of funny thing, it's harmless, and why not? Make it a little Easter egg where somehow MacArthur can become the leader of China. Maybe some sort of alternative coup. Okay, I can live with that. If, and big if, this is an Easter egg. It should not be visible. It has to be something you go out of your way to discover. It must be hidden. But that, as we say, is that. Of course, I didn't include absolutely everything I could include. There's plenty to talk about. Let me know what you would have included in your version of this. And before I forget, here's the full version of the bingo card. I'll make sure there's a version of it in the description below for you to download. But apart from that, until next time everybody, I thank you for watching, I do hope you've enjoyed it, and until we meet again, from me, Bubbles Zest, I need a strepsil. Goodbye.